us. I remember them taking us to the dining room there in one of the House of Representatives, I think, where we ate and all that thing and fed us and so forth. And
who did you see? Who did y'all visit?
Ralph Yarborough.
Okay.
Right. Ralph Yarborough, senator. He was a senator at that time.
Okay.
And we visited. We went by one of the representatives. I forgot his name, from Dallas, but I don't think we got a chance to see him. But we got a chance to talk to one of his aides.
Okay.
And then Lyndon Johnson, he was there too, but we didn't get a chance to see him.
Okay.
But it was Ralph Yarborough who was the one who, and he was one of the more liberal senators that we've had.
Liberal Democrat, right?
Yes, sir. Right.
Yes. Okay. What else was the highlights of that particular trip?
Did we go to a convention as the end of that? We seemed like we went to the national NAACP convention. I believe that's what I think. What we ended up at the national NAACP convention. Was that in New Jersey or New York?
I don't know that particular year.
But
there was one here in '54.
Yes.
That you participated in that?
Yes, sir. I did participate in that one. The Supreme Court handed down that May 17th decision, and 1 month later, the National NAACP Convention was held here in Dallas. And of course, being a member of the Youth Council, we all participated, and I've got pictures now of Thurgood Marshall, Walter White, who was then the executive secretary, all of the leading people of the method at the national level. I had an opportunity to meet here in Dallas, and we met at churches over in North Dallas, what we call North Dallas, is now uptown. They met at my church, Good Street, St. John, and maybe New Hope, and then there was several other churches over there, and the YMCA. YMCA. Right, the meetings we had, and they had a place designated for the youth to meet. That's where we met most of the time, one of the churches and so forth.
What did y'all do in y'all's meetings and in the 54th convention? What did the youth do in their meetings at the 54th convention? At the 54th convention, yes.
Basically, I think, from what I recall now, they were all briefing us and telling us about the impact and what to expect out of that ruling that the Supreme Court had handed down. Okay. There was a lot of emphasis on that. Then there was, I recall, there was an issue with the general, in the black general. What was his name? Benjamin. He was a black general.
Davis. Benjamin O. Davis.
Benjamin O. Davis, right.
Yes.
There was an issue with him. He was supposed to come to Dallas. Some group here was going to give him some kind of an award. And we didn't want him to come. We wanted him to turn this award down because of the fact that they would not open up, places for us to attend. And that was an issue that, and he decided not to come. Okay. He wasn't coming to the convention. He was coming here to accept that award. Okay. But he turned that down. Then I think later on, they were going to bring him here, and we still protested, and he didn't come. I remember that. I remember that. That was one of the things that we talked about. So I can recall. Everything was centered around, that ruling from that court. Is basically what I can remember at this point.
They brought in Ralph Bunch, and they did the big mass
Ralph
meeting.
Bunch was here, the big mass meeting.
Yes, did you go to that?
Yes, sir. What was it, at Sportatorium, I believe? Yeah, right. Right. Yeah, right. I did attend that. Right, sure did.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go back to education, and we'll come back to the NAACP and some of the things that the Youth Council did, as well as what you did in the NAACP after you became a professional. You graduated from Lincoln in what, 55? 54. Okay. And you went to...
I went to Philander Smith.
Philander Smith and Pine Bluff. No,
Little Rock.
Little Rock.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
I spent 1 year finding over there.
Okay. What made you decide to go to the University of North Texas? And then as you give me the answer, just go into Atkins versus Matthews in the whole case.
Okay. Well, I always recall that I had been to North Texas while I was in high school. Ms. Kraft took us up to Oklahoma City, and I recall us touring that campus, and I, I always thought, well, it's a beautiful campus. I never will forget it, and close to Dallas, and I always, said, well, we can't go there, and I always had the feeling that, once after I heard about that Supreme Court ruling, I was saying, well, yeah, that school is close to home. Why don't I try to go up there? And so after I spent a year over there at Philander Smith, and I came home for the summer, I decided, well, I would see if we could, I could transfer into that school. And in June, I think it was around June 13th, my mother and Mrs. Kraft and myself, we went up on the campus. And I never will forget it. We drove to Denton and drove down to the administration building. And it was a tree-lined walk up to the administration building. And while we were going up the walk, there were black men who were groundkeepers taking care of the grounds, and they noticed us. And they spoke to us, and we spoke back, and I'm sure they wondered. I don't think they're looking, I probably said that I know they're not looking for a job, so. But anyway, we went on into the administrative office, went to the registrar's office, and the young lady who was at the counter asked, can I help you all? And I told her that I was there, I wanted to pick up an application to transfer into the school. And she turned around and said, I'll be back. And she went back into one of the offices, and a fellow came out and introduced himself, and we had a little chat. And then we explained to him why we were there. And he suggested that, he says, you know what, I think y'all need to talk with the registrar. So he took us to a little conference room, and we sat there, and finally the registrar came in. His name was Dr. Dickey. And he came in, and we had a little chat, and we told him our purpose and so forth. And he said, well, I tell you what, I think I need to call the vice president who was in charge during that summer. His name was Dr. Sampley. And so he went and got Dr. Sampley, and they both came back, and we had a long chat. It was very cordial and so forth. And they gave us a little history about North Texas, and they were aware of the Supreme Court's ruling, and they were planning on admitting blacks, and it was kind of like in a reverse order, transferring in, starting at the senior level and so forth, with no timeline. I mean, there was no timeline there. And of course, the year before, they had admitted A. Tennyson Miller into a doctoral program. And they talked about that. And then their emphasis was, we'd like to do this voluntarily on our own. We don't want anybody, to force us. We don't want a test case, is what the term that they use. And so after they, completed their talk, we again insisted, would you give us an application? Which they finally gave us the application. And once we got the application, we left, and I came home and completed it and sent it back. And of course, I had Philander Smith to send my transcript over there. And I received a letter from Dr. Sampley stating that they were going to deny, my application because of my race and color. And once I got that application, we took it to NAACP attorney U. Simpson Tate, who was the regional, the NAACP had a regional office in Dallas, and he was the attorney assigned to that office. And of course, he took the letter, and my father had to, at that time, they considered me a minor. I was 19 years old. He had to be 21, so he had to file it on my behalf. And he drew up the papers and filed a suit in the district court. And I think it was in August the suit was filed. And then the attorney asked for a temporary restraining order for them to admit me in September. And of course, in the meantime, Texas Western out in El Paso had opened up. Now, there was a suit filed against that school out there. And of course, before the hearing, they went ahead and opened it up. And Mr. Tate told me about that, and so said, you know, we've asked for a temporary order, but you might want to just consider going out there and you know, in case they don't want to let you go to North Texas. You can go back to Philander Smith. So anyway, I went ahead and made an application out there and got accepted. However, the case came up in Tyler. The judge moved around at that time. He was from Sherman, but he was having a hearing over in Tyler. We went to Tyler for the hearing. And the administrators were there, Dr. Matthews and Santley and so forth. And Mr. Tate is the one who represented me. And I think the schools were arguing the fact, as I recall, about the fact that they were overcrowded, and legislature was going to give them some money, and they needed to build some new dormitories and all that kind of stuff. And that was they didn't argue about the law. You know, they took the stance that it was that they were just so crowded they couldn't take on anybody. And they admitted me that they would have to admit 300 or 400 African Americans and so forth. So anyway, at the end of the presentation, the judge decided. He said, well, he needed more information. And he was said he reset the hearing for December up in Sherman. So in the meantime, I went on out to El Paso, and the hearing came up in Sherman in December. I didn't have to go to the hearing because they said it was a case of pure law, and of course, and I do know at the hearing the judge brought up that the fact that what they had argued about being overcrowded, and he noted that at the same time they had admitted other whites, and so he overruled them and opened up the school for me and any other African American that very next semester. So I elected to stay at Texas Western, which was at that time where I got my degree, and I mean I had gotten comfortable out there, and I didn't want to go through the process, so I stayed out there and got my degree. But now, there was one person, I understand, that entered North Texas that second semester, which was 1956 in January, and her name was Cephas, Miss Cephas, and I understand she was a transfer from out of Fort Worth.
Okay. When you finished UTEP, well, Texas Western, what did you do? What was your first job?
Okay. When while I was at the UTEP, I got a real estate license, and while I was in school, and I sold real estate for a little while. And after I graduated, I came home, and I applied for a job here in Dallas. They was advertising for an abstractor down at the courthouse, and I went down to apply for that position. And they told me that they were hiring janitors down on the bottom floor or something. That was the kind of comment I got, So, but anyway, they didn't give me the job, and I worked with my father until, oh, by the way, I was out of school about